Bernie Sanders often spends time in the Russell Senate office building on Capitol Hill. Today, though, he was at a different Russell building, the Russell House, here on the USC campus. Here's how his afternoon went. He spoke to students who couldn't get into the main event, telling them in an overflow room that a win here would send a message to the rest of the country. Then he was introduced by the daughter of Eric Garner at a town hall in a small auditorium. And then he went up a flight of stairs and sat down with us in a conference room that looked sort of like the boardroom of The Apprentice. We started our conversation talking about race. I'm wondering how you compare the agenda aspiration of Black Lives Matter and other civil rights groups today with the civil rights movement of the 1960s.
Well, let me just, before I answer that, say that when we started this campaign, as you know, we were like 3% of the polling nationally, way behind in Iowa, way behind in New Hampshire. We made up a lot of ground. We started this campaign, I think 60, 70 points down in South Carolina, almost no support from the African-American community. We still have a long way to go, but I think any objective observer would say we have made up a whole lot of ground. In terms of your question, I think I was fortunate enough, honored, if you like, as a young man to be at the March on Washington with Dr. King, which, as you may recall, was called the March for Jobs and Freedom. Jobs and freedom. And what King understood is you needed both. To live in a free society, you needed to have income. You needed to have economic dignity, as well as legislation and law, which guaranteed you political freedom. That was the twin fight that he waged. I think where Black Lives Matter have played a very, very important role in reminding many of us, those in the white community especially, that we really don't understand fully what goes on in African-American communities in terms of relationships to police. And I think what we have seen now in recent years is the American people, black and white, getting tired of seeing unarmed people killed by police officers when they should not have been killed. We are tired of seeing African-Americans arrested at much higher levels for the same crime than whites. So I think there is now a focus in Black Lives Matter on criminal justice, on asking why we have so many people in jail, why the rate of recidivism is so high, why we are still combating police brutality, why we have militarized police departments, why police departments around the country don't look like the diversity of the communities they're serving. So those are, some of the differences.
I want to follow up on that. You said in the debate the other night in Milwaukee that in some ways you thought a Sanders administration would be better for race relations than the Obama administration has been. And you made an argument about economics that ties into the answer you just gave about why the improving economy for African Americans would be part of the reason. Just explain, if you can, what's your analysis of why it is that race relations have not improved more in the last 7.5 years, 7 full years under Barack Obama. A lot of African Americans who feel this very strongly, that we've not come as far as they expected under the first black president. What's your analysis for why that happened?
Well, it's a good question, John, and I don't fully know the answer. What I do know is that the African American community is tired of police harassment. The African American community is tired of seeing their people, African Americans, arrested 4 times as often as whites for possession of marijuana. They are tired of seeing schools in black communities deteriorate. They are tired, by the way, and this ties together with the economy, of seeing the country make significant gains after the Wall Street crash, but yet the African American community has not made those kinds of gains.
But does President Obama bear some responsibility?
I don't want to get into criticisms of President Obama. He has faced enormous obstructionism in his 7 years. He's facing it today because he wants to exercise the constitutional right to appoint a Supreme Court justice. This has gone on for years and years. Yes, President Obama is not perfect. I don't know anybody who is. He has tried. If you want to look at blame, look at the unprecedented level of obstructionism we've had from the Republican Congress in the last 7 years.
You raised the question of the replacement for Justice Scalia a few moments ago. Let me ask you about this. You said the other day that anybody who you appointed to replace Justice Scalia or anybody on the Supreme Court would have to be an opponent, would have to be in favor of overturning Citizens United. You made that comment just the other day.
Right.
Basically, it does a litmus test, essentially, I think, if you're saying that would be. So how is that different from the litmus test that Republicans apply if they say we'll only appoint a Supreme Court justice who is for overturning Roe v. Wade or has a certain position on affirmative action? Is there a difference between those kinds of litmus tests?
Look, I'm not a great fan of litmus tests. You know, and I could tell you, well, gee, I want a Supreme Court justice to read everything I've ever written and to say publicly they would support that. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying, this issue of Citizens United is so significant, is so fundamental to the future of this country. This is democracy. And right now, what we are seeing in this campaign are people like the Koch brothers, Wall Street, and other billionaires buying elections. And if we allow them to buy elections, then everything else doesn't matter because you don't have a democracy. So this is one issue, you know, that I am saying, yeah, I want my nominee to be loud and clear that he or she will vote to overturn Citizens United. It goes without saying, you know, I am pro-choice. Not terribly likely that I'm going to be nominating somebody who is anti-choice, et cetera. But this is a litmus test for me because I'm worried about the future of American democracy.
Are people like Justice Breyer, Justice Kagan, are they in sync with you? Are they far enough to the left as you'd like them to be? Or are they more part of the establishment?
Well, I would like every justice in the history of the world to think exactly as I think. But you know what? I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, but
they are doing a good job. If the answer is, you know, have they done a good job? Yeah, I think that they have. They have, I think, stood up. I think one of the differences, they are actually living in the real world, know what's going on in the real world, and understand thoroughly the Constitution is a living document.
So you think people want to say, what would a President Sanders do? What kind of people would he nominate? I'm not saying you nominated people exactly like them, but they're not too conservative for you.
No.
Well, let me just ask you a follow-up on that. I mean, are there particular jurists who you admire? I know you're often asked, who do you consult on foreign policy? This is a similar kind of question. When you look at the federal bench, when you look at law professors, are there people whose names you would list and say, this is the kind of person who I might appoint to the Supreme Court?
Well, I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg has proven to have a very admirable record as Supreme Court Justice. There are others, but I think she's one who I respect a lot.
Again, thinking about you now, as people are increasingly as a possible president, I'm wondering whether you think it's ever appropriate for a president to publicly lie to the American people.
Well, I should hope not. I mean, I think, what there has got to be in terms of the relationship of government to the people, which we are losing every day, is a level of trust. So I would hope that a president of the United States tells the truth to the American people.
Are there times in our
that's my answer.
Are there times in our history where a president has lied that you think have been particularly damaging to that relationship?
Sure.
What are the examples?
We have seen. Well, I think we don't have to go much further back than the war in Iraq. I think there was a lot of disinformation coming out of the White House about weapons of mass destruction, which has led to the disaster we now see in Iraq and Afghanistan.
We've got the Nevada caucuses coming up on Saturday on the Democratic side. You've spent some time out there, and I know have talked about immigration and other issues that are important to Hispanic Democrats and Hispanic Americans in general. What are the right now the tangible, salient differences between you and Hillary Clinton on issues that face the Hispanic community specifically? Immigration is one, but there are others you could address if you want. But things where you are demonstrably different from your main opponent.
I am going to fight very hard to see Congress does its job, which is to pass comprehensive immigration reform. If Congress does not do its job, then I will pick up where President Obama left off and try to use the executive power of the presidency in order to unite families and not continue to see them divided. I think the Secretary and I did have a difference in how we treat the child refugees who came from Honduras and Guatemala. I think she thought that they should be sent back, and I thought they should be allowed to get their lives together in the United States.
But it's fair to say that on the question, for instance, of immigration reform, executive authority, and so on, that there's really no real distinction between the two of you on those issues.
Well, that may well be the case. I can't tell you that I'm 100% familiar with every aspect of the Secretary's position.
part of getting elected is people believing that you can get elected.
Yeah.
You know, since the New Hampshire primary, what's your sense of how people are treating you in that respect?
Well, I think your point is well taken. One of the obstacles we've had from day one is people say, Bernie, I really love your ideas. Man, you're right on all of these issues. I just can't vote for you because, I just don't think you can win. And if people hold that attitude, you never win. So I think what we have seen in the last many months is a real increase of support all across this country. In Iowa, as I mentioned, some of the polls had us like 50 points down, and we ended up virtually tied. New Hampshire, we were 30 points down. We won kind of with a big vote. Nevada, we started way, way down. In this state, in South Carolina, there were polls that had us in single digits, less than 10%. I don't know if we're going to win here or not. But we are. If we don't, we're going to make it awfully close. We have the momentum here, no question about it.
Notice, I think it's pretty clear from the last two debates and some of the press releases from your side and Secretary Clinton's side that things have kind of escalated in terms of intensity and the velocity and the frequency of criticism back and forth.
The media is overjoyed.
Well,
couldn't be happier about it, right?
Not us.
But I'm wondering how you feel about it. Would you like it to be ratcheted down? I know you would say you always want it to be about issues, but would you like the sort of the personal nature of it to be ratcheted down? And if so, what can you do to contribute to that?
Well, we have tried. I mean, what does get me very annoyed is as well as anybody, how often I am asked, and in a sense how vulnerable Secretary Clinton is in many ways, right? Media says this and that. Bernie, why don't you attack her on this? I have gotten people on television angry at me. How can you be president? You're not beating up on Secretary Clinton enough. I've chosen not to do that, and as you've said, I've chosen to focus on the real issues. Then I get attacked by somebody in her campaign is running one of the most negative campaigns in the world. That is very, very annoying. But we will do our best, and I'll tell you why. Number one, it's what I believe. Number two, I think people want you to be not just yelling and demagoguing and attacking your opponent. They want you to understand what they are going through and addressing their issues. That's what we'll stay focused on.
On the Republican side right now, Donald Trump is basically calling everybody a liar, and others are calling everybody liars almost on a daily basis, hourly basis, accusing everybody of lying about each other. Do you feel as though Secretary Clinton or her campaign has lied about you and your stances at all in any way, distorted to the point?
Yeah, the answer is yes. But I think to compare our campaign to the Republican campaign would be absurd.
What are the things? What are the things you've had?
See, that's what you're trying to do.
I'm asking you to say if there are things that you've been there are areas of your campaign where you feel as though your positions have been misrepresented.
Lie is a strong word, right? That's a provocative word.
Or misrepresented.
Yeah, I mean the idea that I, as somebody who has fought for universal health care for his entire career, that I want to do away with people's health care. So the implication being that if you're on the Children's Health Insurance Program, I'm going to take it away and leave you without anything. Or you're on Medicaid, I'm going to do away with it. Obviously, what a Medicare for All is about is providing health care to all of our people, without deductibles, by the way, stronger health care for all of our people. When the Secretary puts an ad on implying that Bernie Sanders is attacking Planned Parenthood, I happen to think Planned Parenthood is one of the great organizations in this country. I'm a huge fan of Planned Parenthood. I want to increase funding for them. I'm not attacking them. That I'm protecting the gun lobby. Yeah, really? I got a D- voting record from the NRA and may well have lost an election early in my career because my opposition, the opposition that came from the gun people. So yeah, there have been distortions, but I think it is thankfully not reached the level of where the Republicans are at.
I just want to take you back quickly to this process question of attacks and the escalation, because your campaign does put out press releases on a pretty regular basis that are critical of her.
Yes.
So there's a choice always. Do you fight back? Do you participate in the back and forth? Again, I'm just wondering whether you're comfortable with this level of back and forth that your campaign participates in, or whether you'd like to see it ratcheted down. If
we get attacked, we're going to respond. If somebody says that I am attacking Planned Parenthood when I happen to think it's one of the important organizations in America, and I'm a strong supporter of it, of course we will respond. So, if we're attacked, we will respond. But I would hope and believe that what the American people deserve is a discussion of the issues of importance to them, and also, nothing wrong with this, the differences of opinions that the Secretary and I have, our voting records. She voted for the war in Iraq. I voted against it. If I make that point to you, is that being negative? I don't think so.
Are you also proving to voters that you're tough enough to fight back politically, and Democrats can say, this is a guy who's standing up to Hillary Clinton, we can put him in the general election? Is that happening?
Hey, you're looking at somebody who's taken on every special interest in the United States of America. I don't think people have to worry about my toughness. But be tough is one thing, to be rude, to run an ugly negative campaign, that's something else.
What do you, right now, as you head into these next couple contests and beyond, what do you fear right now? Or what worries you? What concerns you?
What is, amazing, and you got to be in this process to really appreciate it. Of course, I knew it intellectually, but emotionally it's something else. In my whole life, I've run for office in the state of Vermont. Election day comes, you work hard. The election is over. You say, whoa, we won. That's great. Oh, we lost. That's too bad. Well, we won in, we got a virtual tie in Iowa. That night, we're on a plane and we have a rally 5 o'clock in the morning in New Hampshire. And we're zipping around New Hampshire. We won in New Hampshire. We're on a plane. We're going, to Nevada. We're going to South Carolina. We're going to Michigan. We're going to Minnesota. It's a never-ending process. And at the end of the day, what it's about is not just winning or losing New Hampshire, Iowa, South Carolina. It's accumulating delegates. So we have some very smart people right now who are figuring out delegate counts, how many delegates we need to win this thing. And we're going to be paying attention in those communities. And a lot of them are coming up on March 1st and soon after.
So your fear is what? What was your fear? What do you worry about? I understand that was a compelling description of what's been happening to you, but what do you fear?
I guess I'm not afraid. I guess to answer your question, now that I think about it, it just means there's a lot of work and we have to do it well. I mean, you're juggling. It's not just focus. You're running, 15 elections simultaneously. Hard enough to run for the U.S. Senate from Vermont. To run 15 simultaneously is not easy. So I hope and believe that our team is doing a great job. And we're just going to work out. So I'm not afraid. It's just an awesome challenge. That's all.
Apart from physical collapse, you fear?
Well, that above, yes. That in addition to that, right? That's. But we're feeling pretty good.